She endured disgrace, verbal abuse, and even efforts to remove her from her position, yet nobody could foresee that this unnoticed janitor would ultimately become the proprietor of the company. Those who once ridiculed her now risk losing their jobs. Justice has been served. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more uplifting stories of perseverance and equity. Let us know in the comments what you would do in her situation. The tension in the meeting room was palpable as Emma carefully navigated her broom and dustpan across the floor, her movements deliberate and measured, while her mind raced. She meticulously observed every interaction, captured each facial expression, and analyzed the power structures within the room. She wasn't just a typical janitor, she was the building's owner and the CEO of the corporation that employed everyone there. By temporarily setting aside her executive role, she sought to identify the real problems impacting her recent takeover. From her unobtrusive position, she watched the group of men in business attire, most unaware of her presence as they focused on crafting a strategy to reduce expenses. They were debating which departments would face cuts and how to present these unavoidable reductions as a regrettable but necessary reorganization, none realizing that their futures were being evaluated by the sole person capable of making the final decision. Emma had acquired this company a few months earlier when it was on the brink of collapse. This enterprise was once a leading player, an innovator in the technology industry, but it had declined due to ineffective management, arrogant leadership, and a lack of innovation. What astonished her the most was when she, reviewing the records, it wasn't just the shrinking market presence or the financial data that stood out, it was the total neglect of the employees. The clear disregard for the individuals who were the foundation of the company's success was evident. Emma's decision to join as a janitor was not impulsive. She had spent her life rising from modest beginnings, growing up in a family with limited means, and had seen how influential people overlooked those they deemed insignificant. She carefully built her business from scratch, dedicating countless hours to proving her worth. Surrounded by people who often focused solely on her race or gender, she developed humility and resilience, traits that brought her to this pivotal moment. It had been 2 weeks since she took on the janitor role. Each day, she faced uncomfortable truths, casual racism, sarcastic remarks, and dismissive actions. Once she became the janitor, she became invisible to those who depended on her work. Emma understood the necessity of addressing the real issues at hand. Her screen displayed various metrics. She comprehended the numbers and graphs, but she valued the employees' perspectives. As she knelt to clean a spill, the discussion in the room grew more intense. "We can't maintain the current costs of the benefit packages," stated one of the senior executives, a tall, stern man whose arrogance was evident. "By reducing the lower-level staff by 20%, we can achieve enough savings to satisfy the board for the next quarter," he suggested, receiving nods from several members focused on the data before them. Emma felt her heart tighten. She had seen this approach happen time and again. Layoffs affected the most vulnerable, and cuts left employees demoralized and the workforce diminished. The company was being drained from within, with no consideration for the long-term effects of these decisions. One of the men, Tom Reynolds, a mid-level manager whose ambitions exceeded his abilities, glanced briefly at Emma before dismissively rolling his eyes. "These janitors," he muttered quietly enough that only a few could hear, "we might have to let some of them go. They don't seem essential. Honestly, I don't understand why we need so many." The comment stung, but Emma maintained a calm demeanor while cleaning a nearby desk. She had faced tougher situations before, yet she was still amazed at how easily some people could undermine others when they thought no one important was watching. Emma wasn't there to engage with petty insults, she had a mission. She needed to identify the fundamental problems within the company, blending in strategically as she did so. At the lower levels of the hierarchy, it became clear how deeply entrenched the issues were. Later that day in the break room, Emma sat alone at one of the small round tables, sipping coffee from a worn mug. Her co-workers chatted and joked around her, seemingly ignoring her presence, as if she were just another object in the room. Lisa, an administrative assistant, leaned against the counter, laughing with her colleagues. "Have you heard about the new janitor?" she asked loudly, ensuring Emma could hear. "She's so quiet, hardly says a word. I bet she doesn't even speak." Laughter erupted, yet Emma remained still, her face revealing nothing. She had heard comments like these countless times and had learned to ignore them. However, it wasn't the mocking tone that disturbed her, it was the indifference. No one challenged the casual racism, and no one stood up for the janitor, whom they collectively deemed unworthy of attention. In moments like these, Emma felt the heavy weight of her decision to blend in. The disdain from those nearby was palpable, but it also provided her with invaluable insight, revealing that the company's culture was not just flawed, but fundamentally toxic. Simply restructuring departments and altering financial strategies wouldn't suffice, she would need to rebuild the ethical foundation of the organization. That evening, as Emma finished her workday, she walked through the nearly empty office corridors. The building had a different feel at night, quiet and almost peaceful. She paused near the CEO's office, looking at the door with its brass nameplate that still bore the former owner's name, but within a few weeks, it would display her own. When that time came, she would deliver an unexpected judgment. In the meantime, she remained patient, quietly enduring the insults and demeaning remarks. She knew that once the moment of truth arrived, everyone who had underestimated her would recognize her true identity, and the power dynamics would shift. Emma took a deep breath, turned away from the office, and walked toward the exit. The night air was cool and invigorating. She felt a mixture of determination and anticipation. The stress of the day had lessened as she approached her car, but thoughts of the impending upheaval lingered in her mind. It would surprise others, as it always did, yet she felt ready, she had always been prepared. The next day began as usual for Emma, as she donned her janitor's uniform and entered the office without drawing attention. However, this time the weight of her mission felt heavier. The disregard, the casual racism, it was all part of a system she was on the verge of dismantling. For now, she held on to her resolve. She had to endure it because real change doesn't happen overnight, it requires patience. Emma had mastered patience long ago. As she moved silently through the hallway, she understood that soon those who had overlooked her would be seeking her approval. The morning sun streamed through the large glass windows of the office building as Emma resumed her role as an ostensibly invisible member of the company's environment. Wearing her janitor's uniform, moving among the desks, she felt as if she were cloaked in invisibility. Being unnoticed by the busy employees around her, Emma wasn't seen as a person with her own thoughts, feelings, or opinions. To them, she was just the janitor. This reality was evident every single day as her patience and resilience were tested in ways that might have overwhelmed others. Today was no different. As she wheeled her cleaning cart into a conference room, she found a group of staff members already present, energetically discussing the upcoming layoffs. Emma quietly made her way to the far corner of the room. The space was being methodically cleaned as they swept the floor, trying to stay discreet to catch more candid thoughts. "I heard they're going to cut the workforce by another 15%, one of the women remarked, her voice filled with concern. Lisa was speaking again, the same administrative assistant who had mocked Emma the previous day. "I wouldn't be surprised if half of these janitors lose their jobs soon. Honestly, they're hardly needed," she added, her voice carrying a familiar note of casual disdain that Emma recognized all too well. Throughout her career, she had encountered individuals who believed a person's value was tied to their job title. She remained silent, focusing on her tasks, while the others discussed and laughed about who might be next to leave. Tom Reynolds, a driven mid-level manager who had previously ridiculed the importance of janitors, joined the conversation, saying, "Honestly, I don't see why we need so many janitors. They act as if they're essential, but I've never seen them do anything that justifies their presence." There were hardly more than a few of them in the entire building. Emma clenched her teeth while maintaining a composed expression. She knew how people like Tom quickly judged others without hesitation. Their own ambitions and feelings of superiority blinded them, preventing them from recognizing the value of anyone who didn't fit their narrow definitions of success. As the day progressed, Emma's interactions with her coworkers became increasingly belittling. In the break room, she found herself sitting alone at a table. Emma sipped her coffee from her usual chipped mug while the room buzzed with conversation as coworkers grouped together, laughing and sharing their weekend plans. She typically ignored the chatter, but today it struck a nerve. Jack, a young intern, was speaking loudly near the coffee machine, talking with friends. "I don't understand why they need so many janitors. How hard can it be to clean a building? They just sweep and wipe desks, don't they?" Laughter filled the room as someone commented that even a grandmother could handle that task. Emma's grip on her mug tightened. She had grown accustomed to enduring such remarks, letting them slide off her back without showing any emotion, yet inside, she felt the all-too-familiar sting of being stereotyped and judged solely by her uniform. Jack glanced at Emma for a moment, his eyes scanning her as if she were just another piece of furniture. "I mean, look at her," he said. "She doesn't talk to anyone and probably doesn't even speak English." More laughter followed while Emma focused intently on her coffee, denying them the satisfaction of a reaction. She felt a warmth spreading in her chest as anger simmered just beneath the surface, yet she swallowed it down. These individuals were unaware of her identity or her capabilities. They had no idea that the woman they were mocking would soon have control over their professional futures. The afternoon continued in the same vein as Emma went about her duties in the office. Tom Reynolds was as dismissive as ever, his condescending attitude nearly unbearable. While absorbed in his computer screen, he called her over without looking up, saying, "Hey, you," with a dismissive wave. "The trash can is overflowing, why don't you take care of it?" Emma approached without altering her calm demeanor, noting that the trash wasn't even full. She felt the eyes of her colleagues on her as Tom remained engrossed in his emails, seemingly unaware of her presence. Carefully, she removed the bag from the can, tied it up, and replaced it with a fresh one. Although she stayed silent, the quiet between them was intense. As she was about to leave, she heard Tom mutter to a coworker, "I swear, these people are unbelievably slow, no sense of urgency. They probably think they deserve a raise just for showing up." Emma walked away, the words echoing in her ears. She had heard it all before, the disregard, the dehumanization, the casual racism ingrained in the workplace culture. It was a painfully familiar refrain. Her existence was a reality she had been forced to confront since her youth, but Emma knew something Tom and the others didn't: endurance wasn't a sign of weakness but rather of strength. Later that evening, after most of the coworkers had left for the day, Emma remained alone in the office. She stood before the CEO's office, where the door still bore the name of the former owner. In a matter of weeks, her name would replace it, and those who had underestimated her would come to understand the significance of. For now, she remained the janitor, still unseen, which was exactly what she needed as she moved through the empty corridors. Reflecting on the lessons she had learned over the years about patience, perseverance, and the power of silence, she realized that those around her were unaware of her true identity, a fact that gave her an advantage they couldn't comprehend. Emma had survived more challenging situations in her life, with insults and casual racism being far from new to her. What truly mattered was the ultimate objective, and Emma had always excelled in that area. As Emma guided her cart toward the exit, the cool night air touched her skin. Stepping outside, the calmness of the evening starkly contrasted with the day's turmoil. On her walk to the car, she paused for a moment of reflection. In a few weeks, the balance of power would shift dramatically, leaving those who had belittled her at her feet. Emma would soon initiate the transformation the company desperately needed. However, change required patience, and for now, she had to continue fulfilling her role for another day. The atmosphere in the office was thick with anxiety as rumors about potential layoffs spread quickly, leaving employees worried and uncertain about the future. Emma knew that the time to act was drawing near. She had gathered all the necessary information and endured countless humiliations, but now it was time to proceed. As she entered the office, her thoughts were focused on the upcoming board meeting. The executives were set to discuss the company's future, and Emma was convinced their decisions would worsen the situation. However, this time she refused to stay silent. Emma was ready to speak up as the storm approached. Dawn broke with a gray tint, casting an ominous light through the office building's glass windows. The usual hustle and bustle in the corporate halls were unusually subdued, weighed down by whispers of concern and speculation. Wearing her janitor's uniform, Emma navigated the building just as she had for several weeks, but today felt different. There was a tangible sense of impending crisis that seemed to fill every corner. Rumors about layoffs had quickly spread, with murmurs of an upcoming crisis becoming more pronounced as time passed. Emma understood that this day would be crucial, not only for the company but also for her personally. The forthcoming board meeting was set to determine the organization's fate, as the executives gathered to make decisions affecting numerous lives. Their agenda included discussing potential layoffs, budget cuts, and even the closure of entire departments. Emma had witnessed similar scenarios unfold before, where leaders tried to secure their own positions at the expense of others they deemed replaceable. As she wheeled her cleaning cart down the corridor, she felt a mix of anticipation and determination. She had endured the sneers, the patronizing attitudes, and the subtle racism, all leading to this moment. It wasn't just about saving the company, it was about proving something to herself, the staff, and the world. She had seen the company deteriorate from within, and now she was ready to take action in the boardroom. The room was furnished with stylish leather chairs and a long glass table, already occupied when Emma entered to clean. Although the meeting was scheduled to start in an hour, the executives had arrived early, gathering in small groups to quietly discuss the looming crisis. Emma was familiar with most of them by now, the same group that often viewed her as insignificant, a mere background presence. True to form, Tom Reynolds was at the forefront, his booming voice filling the room as he delivered what seemed like an unexpected motivational speech. His words were nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. Despite his supposed motivational talk, it leaned more towards boasting than truly inspiring. "Today, we need to make some tough decisions," he declared confidently, crossing his arms with a smug expression, "but it's necessary for the company's success. We must reduce the workforce by eliminating redundant positions." Several peers agreed with him, but Emma felt a surge of indignation as she cleaned the conference table. Referring to dedicated staff as unnecessary people seemed callous and dismissive. People were treated as if their lives were meaningless. She noticed the fear and doubt on the faces of the lower-level employees, the ones who would suffer the most from the decisions being made here. Tom, as usual, didn't notice her presence and continued, "We could cut the janitorial staff by half. We don't need so many to maintain cleanliness, and I bet outsourcing the entire department could save us a lot." Emma focused on the table, holding back her words. She had heard enough. Over the past few weeks, she had discovered how easily these individuals could dehumanize others, turning lives into mere data points on a spreadsheet and figures in financial documents. However, today she refused to stay silent. As the hour passed, the room quickly filled with executives, each taking their place around the table as the meeting began. Emma quietly positioned herself in the corner, seamlessly blending in as the janitor, her presence unnoticed by the influential figures about to make critical decisions. The CEO, Robert Miller, stood at the end of the conference table with a serious expression. "We're facing significant challenges," he announced directly. "Our projections for the upcoming quarter are much worse than anticipated. Without immediate action, we are heading towards a complete downfall. It's imperative that we drastically reduce expenses, which will involve substantial layoffs." Emma listened closely as the discussion progressed, with each executive proposing variations of the same ineffective solution. They discussed various options. Eliminating positions, shutting down entire divisions, and cutting benefits. No one spoke of fostering innovation, growth, or investing in the employees who keep the company moving forward. The focus was solely on short-term survival, ignoring future consequences. "Let's start with the administrative team," suggested one executive, looking at the stack of documents before him. "We can reduce their numbers by at least 25%, providing some breathing room for our next quarter," he continued. "And the cleaning staff," Tom Reynolds added. "We could quickly outsource the entire operation, eliminating the need to keep them on the payroll, as a third-party company could perform the same tasks at half the cost." Emma's grip on her mop handle tightened. She had overheard enough. She realized that unless she took action, the company would plunge into an avoidable disaster. The decisions being made were not about saving the company but about protecting the executives' positions at the expense of others. She had spent weeks anonymously gathering insights and understanding the entire situation. Now was the time to reveal the truth. Emma was ready to take charge, but she knew it had to be done thoughtfully and not out of emotion. As the executives continued talking, Emma discreetly placed her mop down and approached the head of the table where Robert Miller was standing. With her heart pounding, she gently tapped him on the shoulder, ready to unveil the facade she had maintained for so long. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Miller." He turned to her, surprised by the interruption, his eyebrows furrowed in confusion as he faced the unrecognizable woman before him. "Yes, what is it?" Emma held his gaze steadily. "I believe the time has come for me to speak." The room fell silent, with every eye suddenly fixed on her. The executives exchanged bewildered looks, unsure about the janitor standing prominently at the head of their table. Tom Reynolds, always quick to seize the moment, was the first to break the silence, his tone filled with disdain. "What do you think you're doing?" he questioned. "This is a private meeting, and you shouldn't be here." Emma ignored his tone, reaching into her pocket to retrieve a small envelope. It was the very envelope that contained the documents proving her ownership of the company. She had been anticipating this moment, eager to see how far they would go before she revealed the truth. "I believe you'll find that I am fully entitled to be here," she stated calmly, handing the envelope to Robert Miller. "As of today, I will be making the decisions that shape the future of this company." Miller looked at the envelope in shock before tearing it open to examine the contents. As he read the confirmation that Emma was now the primary owner of the corporation, his face turned pale. He glanced up at her, speaking in almost a whisper, This can't be true." "Oh, it is absolutely true," Emma responded, her voice unwavering as she addressed everyone present. "I've controlled this company for weeks, observing, listening, and understanding every detail of its operations. I've learned enough to realize that the choices you're making are going to ruin everything, causing the room to descend into chaos." The executives began talking over each other, trying to comprehend the unfolding situation. Tom Reynolds, his face flushed with anger, was the loudest as he stood up. "You can't do this. You're just a janitor," he shouted. Emma faced him, her eyes steely and determined. "I'm more than that," she replied. "I now oversee your positions, your paychecks, and the future of this company. I'll ensure that individuals like you, who believe they can trample over others, learn their lesson." Without any consequences, individuals who wielded dominance were now being held accountable, leaving the room in silence as the weight of her statement settled in. Emma scanned the expressions of the executives who had disregarded her for weeks, the same individuals who had mocked, neglected, and dehumanized her. She had tolerated their arrogance, racial prejudice, and ignorance, but now she stood before them as their superior. The reaction to Emma's revelation was immediate and intense. As she took her place at the head of the table, the power dynamics in the room shifted dramatically. The leadership landscape had completely changed, leaving the former executives, who were once in full control, scrambling to secure their jobs. However, Emma had no intention of maintaining the outdated system. Her goal was to eliminate the deeply rooted problems within the organization and rebuild it from the ground up. Her first step was straightforward: remove those responsible for creating a toxic environment. Individuals like Tom Reynolds would soon face unemployment, paving the way for Emma to initiate the company's transformation. Emma aimed to transform the organization into a place where every employee, regardless of their position, received respect and dignity. In the boardroom, silence hung heavily, filled with tension as Emma's announcement took hold. She looked around, meeting each set of shocked and incredulous eyes with steady composure. She observed the astonishment on their faces, unable to believe that the woman they had casually regarded as just a janitor now controlled their destinies. For weeks, they had treated her with contempt. Never realizing that she was the true driving force behind the company, they were now on the verge of their world collapsing. Emma allowed the silence to linger, enjoying the shift in dynamics. The same individuals who had once mocked and dismissed her were now at her mercy, fully aware of it. The atmosphere was charged with fear, uncertainty, and anger, yet no one dared to speak a word, not just yet. Tom Reynolds, his face still red from the earlier outburst, was the first to break the silence, standing abruptly from his chair with clenched fists and eyes filled with rage. "This is absurd," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with frustration. "You're just a janitor, you can't walk in here and act like you own everything." Emma slowly turned to face him, her expression serene and her voice as firm as steel. "But I do own it, Tom. I've held ownership for weeks, well before you even knew I was here. In that time, I've witnessed firsthand how you and those like you treat the people who keep this company running." Tom's face twisted with anger, yet a hint of fear was visible as he anticipated what was to come. Emma moved closer to him, her voice steady but gentle, saying, "For weeks, I observed you belittling and demeaning the staff here. You labeled them as non-essential and claimed they were irrelevant. Now, you will experience what it feels like to be the one who's deemed insignificant." As Tom was about to protest, Emma raised her hand to stop him. "You're dismissed," she stated coldly, her gaze fixed on him. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." A collective gasp echoed through the room as Tom's face paled at the impact of her statement. "You can't do this," he stammered, panic creeping into his voice. "I've been part of this company for years, I understand how everything operates here." Emma held his gaze steadily. "That's exactly why you're being dismissed, Tom. You've been here so long that you believe you're invincible, but you're not. Nobody is." Just then, before Tom could respond, 2 security guards entered the room. Emma maintained her unyielding stance. She had made her decision clear. The guards took up their task, guiding Mr. Reynolds out while he sought support among the onlookers, yet none dared to assist. Overwhelmed by disbelief and the fear of jeopardizing their own positions, the executives remained silent. Tom grumbled softly, his words lacking conviction as his confidence crumbled with the closing of the door. An oppressive silence filled the room, the atmosphere thick with tension. Emma then turned her attention back to the remaining members of the leadership team. Her voice sharp as a knife, she suggested discussing the company's future. Robert Miller, still leading the meeting, cleared his throat uneasily, unsettled by the unexpected turn of events. "Ms. Johnson," he began cautiously, "if I may ask, what exactly are you aiming for? There's some confusion about your intended direction." Emma nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the room as she responded, "My goals are straightforward. This company has been declining for months, and the choices you're making are driving it toward ruin. I acquired this company to save it, but that's impossible if the toxic management continues." Her statement lingered, making it clear that she intended more than just a change in personnel, she aimed to completely transform the organizational culture. For a long time, individuals have managed this company under the belief that they can treat others as expendable, Emma continued. You discuss eliminating jobs and outsourcing entire departments casually, but you've lost sight of the fact that behind each individual represents someone overlooked, and the success of this company depends on all its employees, from the highest executives to the diligent janitors, the dedicated administrative team, and the essential ground workers. Her words were precise and composed, yet the passion within them was palpable. Throughout her career, she had fought against the elitism and arrogance she observed within the organization, and now she had the authority to implement change. "The way this company has operated is intolerable," Emma declared resolutely. Starting today and continuing for the next hour, Emma presented her vision for the organization's future. She outlined her strategy for restructuring, which would not rely on layoffs or budget cuts but instead focus on investing in employees who had long been neglected. She emphasized the importance of innovation, growth, and sustainable success, concepts that were noticeably absent in the discussions led by previous leaders. Some executives listened quietly, still trying to comprehend the significant change in leadership, while others appeared visibly anxious. Losing their positions, the individuals eagerly nodded in agreement to show their support for the new direction. However, Emma sought genuine transformation rather than mere compliance. She understood this required eliminating ineffective leadership. By the end of the meeting, several more executives were discreetly let go, with their severance packages prepared. Emma had no tolerance for those unable to align with her vision, and she made it clear that anyone unwilling to follow the new path would be asked to leave. The door swung shut behind her that evening, once most of the executives had left. Emma walked through the now empty corridors. The office seemed transformed, quieter, almost peaceful. She realized that the changes initiated today were just the beginning, much remained to be done. Yet, for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of accomplishment. As she paused briefly by the office where her name would soon be inscribed on the door, she reflected on the journey that had led her here. Emma endured weeks of humiliation and disrespect, yet it all proved worthwhile. She uncovered the true nature of those who once held power in the company, and now they were gone. More importantly, Emma demonstrated something to herself. She always believed she had the strength to succeed, and now she possessed the power to transform the lives of her employees. She had the opportunity to build a company where everyone was valued, where no one was seen as expendable. Standing in the silent hallway, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Papers awaited her attention. The recent upheaval had left a lasting impact, yet Emma had emerged successfully. A week after the chaos, the company was vibrant with a fresh wave of enthusiasm. News of Emma's transformative actions had spread quickly, and the employees, once anxious about their job security, now felt a tentative hope for what lay ahead. The previously negative atmosphere in the office was gradually being dismantled, replaced by a more positive environment. Emma looked out from her new office, where the city skyline stretched before her, with a stack of documents ready for her review. Each document symbolized a new opportunity and a fresh path for the business. She firmly believed that leadership was more about influencing those around her, not about titles or authority. Now, she had the chance to lead by example. As she grabbed the first folder, preparing for the tasks ahead, there was a knock on her door. It was one of the janitors, a young woman who had recently been hired. She smiled nervously, unsure if she should disturb the CEO, but Emma gestured for her to come in. "It's okay," Emma reassured her. Her voice was gentle as she asked, "How can I help you?" The woman paused briefly before responding, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done. I've never worked somewhere that treated people like me with respect." Emma felt a surge of pride and smiled, saying, "You're welcome. It's important to remember that everyone here deserves respect, regardless of their role." The woman nodded in acknowledgement and left, leaving Emma to lean back in her chair, filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. The work was only just beginning, but she was confident that together they would create something meaningful. Absolutely fantastic, and this time everyone will be included. We appreciate you watching this tale. Remember to subscribe to stay updated with future episodes, click the notification bell, and check out more amazing stories in the following videos. Share your thoughts in the comments and spread this video among your friends.